Thank you, Administrator, and it's always good to see you. Thank you again for coming. Before we get into other questions, I think I was going to reserve this for the chairman to make his remarks, but perhaps I do want to ask something before we get started, then I'll begin with the ranking member. We've got an example, I know, in West Virginia of the real benefits. You talked about 18 times. We got one up in the northern panhandle, West Virginia, in the Hancock area that for $2.5 million, they've invested over, private sector has put $70 million in. So it's almost a 30-to-1 odds up there for that. And that, it's really had an impact. So I want to thank you for for working with them on this program. Pat Ford was the contact up there, if that name rings a bell with you or not. But secondly, with back in your testimony, in your written testimony, you talked about about 24 or 25% of the grants went to towns of 20,000 or fewer. I'd be curious to take that down a little bit further and to find out. I think in some areas of rural America, especially mine, most of the communities are less than that, significantly less, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people. When the coal mines are shut down and all the work that was related to those coal mines, they may only have 700 people in a town, and they've got there's no money. There's no money in that community. Can you share with us a little bit about the flexibility you have to earmark it towards rural areas that need help? When the mines shut down, that means the railroad shuts down. And when the railroad shuts down, we know invariably there are going to be some brownfield sites associated with where the rail siding had been. They can't afford to do it. So can you help us a little bit about explain maybe really rural areas of 2,000 people or fewer? Do you have any sense of what that might be percentage-wise?
Sure. I would answer it in a couple of parts. One, I think particularly smaller communities, rural communities, have asked us, and we've that upfront technical assistance is really key. The capacity for these rural communities to be able to compete is really critical. So we provide a lot of upfront assistance. We have a national network of technical assistance providers. In fact, in West Virginia, there's a center to provide assistance to local communities, I think one of the most successful ones in the country. So the upfront technical assistance is really critical to develop that capacity, identify opportunities. We also have a non-competitive mechanism where a local community wants to do an assessment on an individual site. And what a lot of local communities, smaller communities have said is they don't really want to administer a grant because there's a lot of administrative burdens associated with the grant. So they'd rather, if they have an individual site, they'd rather assess that site. So we have a contract-based mechanism to assess a particular site. So we think that is successful as well. In terms of the grant process itself, one of the things we've done is we've separated out new and existing grantees. So that and that has resulted in increasing the number of smaller communities and rural communities receiving grants. So those are a number of things that we have put in place.
Okay, well, again, just trying to put it in context with it. We often talk about the speaker's home in Janesville, Wisconsin being a small town. It's 3 times the size of my hometown, and I live in the largest city in my district. So I think we have to understand there are a lot of small towns, and so let me follow up. Would it be advantageous for some of these small towns to collectively put together a regional approach towards it and get funded with that help?
Well,
we've been told that they couldn't do that, and I don't know that you and I haven't talked about that, but I wanted to given this chance this morning to talk about that. Would a regional approach be helpful for small towns to get together so that they maybe collectively come up to 3,000 or 4,000 people?
Oh, absolutely. And we have two, and we could do maybe better outreach regarding that. We have something called a community-wide assessment grant. So one or more communities can say we want to have a single grant to be administered over a broad geography, so we can look at that. We also have an area-wide planning program which is intended to look at not just the sites itself and not just the contaminants itself, but look broadly at, what will it take to redevelop an area? Enable market studies, enable a local visioning, enable infrastructure studies. In fact, in our next round, we're going to do a particular focus on communities that have closed coal mines and closed power plants.
Okay, thank you. And now